Okay, Tractado primero, which tells the story of the life, so which Lazarillo tells his life and whose son he was. Let you know, before all other things, that they call me Lázaro de Tormes, hijo, son of Tome González and Antona Perez, who were from Tejares, village of Salamanca. My birth was in the river Tormes, for which reason I took my surname, and it was in this way. My father, may God forgive him, had the job of providing the grinder of the watermill with stuff, and the watermill which is on the bank of that river, in which he was the miller for more than 15 years. And one night, when my mother was in the watermill, pregnant with me, she went into birth and she gave birth to me there, in a way that truly I can call myself born in the river. Since being a child of 8 years, it's not really since it's anyway. When I was a child of 8 years, they to my father they accused him with certain bloodlettings which were badly done on the sides of those that were coming there to grind the stuff to the mill, for which he was captured, he was arrested, he confessed, and he did not deny it, and he suffered the prosecution for justice. He had to pay the penalty. I hope to God who's in His glory, since the Gospels calls them the lucky ones, the blessed. In this time, it was doing a certain army against the Moors. So at this time there was a battle with the Moors, a sailing battle, I think. And amongst those who went was my father, who at that time was exiled, and for the disaster which I've already explained. And he was exiled with the charge of being a muleteer of a knight who was there at the battle, and with his lord as a loyal servant. He passed away. He died. Came to an end to his life. My mother, who was now a viuda, who was a widower, since she saw herself without a husband or anywhere to live, she decided to go to the good people, to hang around with or be involved with the good people in order to be one of them. And she came to live in the city, and she hired a house, and she started metiose. She put herself into, so she set up a thing of cooking for certain students and washing the clothes of certain stable boys of the Comendador of Magdalena, in a way that she frequented the stables. She was in the stables a lot. Her and a brown man, of those who, so dark-skinned man, of those who looked after the animals. So her and a dark-skinned man who looked after the animals got to know each other. They came in knowledge of one another. This man sometimes would come to our house and he'd go the following day. Other times he'd arrive at the door of a day under the pretext of buying eggs, and he'd come in the house. Myself, at the beginning, when he started to come, I didn't like him, and I was scared of him, seeing the colour of him and the bad expressions that he had. But then when I saw that with his comings, given that he was coming, the food was getting better. I started to like him because he always brought bread, bits of meat, and in winter logs for which we could heat ourselves. In a way that, continuing the lodgings and the conversation, so my mother and him, he continued staying here and talking with my mother. My mother came to give me a little black boy who was very cute, who I used to play with and I used to help to heat, probably to bathe. And I remember that estando el negro de mi padrastro trabajando con el mozuelo, and I remember that when my stepfather, the black man, was working with that little lad, his son, since the lad saw my mother and me as being white and him as not being white, he ran away with fear to my mother, pointing with his finger. He would pointing at his father, the black man, he would saying, "Mother, the boogeyman," and he responded laughing, his father, "Son of a bastard." Although I was young, I noticed that word of I took note of that word of my little brother, and I said to myself, how many people must there be in the world who flee from others because they don't see themselves in them? Our fortune had it, or wanted it, that the conversation with Zaide, that's what he was called, came to the ears of the steward, and when he carried out his investigations, he found that the half of the barley which he gave to the animals, he was stealing, and also the bran and the wood and the horses for the brushes for the horses and the aprons and the blankets and sheets for the horses. All these were perdidas, were lost, so he stole them. And when he couldn't find anything else to steal, supposedly, he would take the horseshoes from the animals, and with all of that, he'd go to my mother and give to my mother to raise my little brother. Okay, so we do not wonder, or we are not surprised when a clergyman, or a friar, we're not surprised at a clergyman or a friar when one steals from the poor and the other from his own house, so that would be from the monastery, in order to give for his devoted women, yeah, and for the help of another one. So what he's saying there really is, we're not surprised when a clergyman or a friar rob from the poor to give to their mistresses and maybe the bastard sons. But when yes, we are surprised when a poor man who is a poor slave, when love makes him do this. Yeah? When he does this out of love, he steals out of love. That was just a little aside, I think. And probóselo cuanto digo. Everything which I am saying was proved unto his stepfather, and even more, because to me, with the threats, when they were asking me with threats, and I, as a small child, I just responded, and they discovered how all that I knew through fear, and even the certain horseshoes that my mother had ordered me to sell to a herrero, to a blacksmith, and to my poor stepfather, they whipped him and they pringaron. So pringar is to dip or to spread in fat, so to form a torture. They must be poured boiling fat over him. And to my mother, they put the penalty for justice, so she had to do stuff as well. And on top of the usual 100 whippings, also that in the house of the aforementioned comedor, she could not go in, nor could she accept in her house the poor Zaide, the pitiable Zaide. So as not to throw the rope after the bucket. So that's a set phrase, as if to say, so as not to go down the same path as he went down, Zaide. The poor woman, the mother, my poor mother, made great efforts and fulfilled the sentence, carries out the sentence. And in order to avoid danger and to get away from the bad tongues, from the gossip, she went to serve those who at the moment lived in the inn of La Solana. She went to serve in an inn, and there she suffered 1,000 bad things. But she ended up raising my little brother until he learned to walk, and to me to be a good like serving lad, who would go to the guests for wine. He would serve them wine and candles and anything else that they asked me to bring. They ordered. At this time, there came to stay at the inn a blind man who, appearing to him that I would be the one to guide him. So who thought that I would be good to guide him. He asked my mother this, and she entrusted me to him, telling him that I was a son of a good man who, in order to extol the faith, Christian faith, had died in the Battle of the Gelbes, and that she entrusted in God. Ella confiaba en Dios, no saldré peor hombre. And she entrusted in God that I would not end up being a worse man than my father. and she beseeched him, the blind man, to treat me well and to look after me since I was an orphan. He responded that he would do that and that he would receive me not as a servant boy but as a son. And thus he started to serve him. So he's talking in the third person, but it really means the first person. And thus I started, he's saying he started to serve and to guide my new and also old master. Since we were in Salamanca for some days, it seemed to my master that there was not much profit to his liking, and he decided to go from there. And when we saw íbamos, and when we were going to leave, I went to see my mother, and both crying, she gave me her blessing, and she said, "Son, I know that I won't see you again. Try to be good and let God guide you. Criadote, I have brought you up, and with a good master, I have left you with a good master. Válete por ti. Look after yourself. Look out for yourself." And thus I went to my master, who was waiting for me. We left Salamanca, and upon arriving to a bridge, there was at the entrance to it, at the start of the bridge, an animal of stone that almost had the form of a bull. And the blind man ordered me to go up close to the animal, and when I was there, he said to me, "Lázaro, go up to put your ear to this bull, and you will hear a big noise inside it." I, in my innocence, went up there, believing it to be so, and when the blind man felt or realised that I had my head on level with the stone, he afirmó recio la mano. It must be sort of like recio is stiff, the hand. He made a stiff hand. He stiffened his hand, and he gave me a big calabazada, a big hit around the head. He gave me a big hit on the head with so he hit my head against the devil of the bull. So he hit my head against the bloody bull, which for more than 3 days the pain lasted me of that strike. And he said to me, "Stupid boy, learn that a serving boy of a blind man, 1 point, he must know more than the devil." So he's basically saying to learn that if you're going to be my guide, you need to know more than the devil. You need to have your wits about you. And he laughed a lot at this joke, or at this trick. And it seemed to me in that moment, so it seemed to me in that moment that I awoke from my simpleness and my innocence, in which I was asleep as a child, and I said to myself, "This man says the truth, and he helps me to lighten up my eye. He helps me to be more aware, to avivar el ojo, to wake up and to be aware of things, and to think how I am going to look after myself. I'm going to know how to look after myself since I am by myself." We started our journey, and we started our way, and in very few days, he showed me the jargon. So he showed me the ropes. And since he saw in me good skill and wit, holgábase mucho. He was very happy, and he said, I, gold nor silver can I give to you, but advice, so tips on how to live, many of these I shall show to you. And it was thus that after that after God, this is the man who gave me life. And even though he was blind, he enlightened me and he showed me the career of living. I don't have to say to you all these silly things or all these simple things to show how much virtue there is for men to know how to rise even though they are low men. So how much virtue there is in people who are born low knowing how to rise, and how much vice there is in allowing oneself to fall being high, and they've been born high, or they are high. Tornando al bueno. So, turning to my good blind master and telling his things, know you, let you know that ever since God's created the world, ninguno formó más astuto ni sagaz. Ninguno formó. So know you that since God created the world, God did not make anyone more astute or wise than my blind master. In his trade, he was an eagle. 100 and more prayers he knew by heart, and in a low voice and a relaxed voice and a very soundable voice, he would make the church ring out when he prayed. He had a humble face and a devout face with which he could put on very good faces. He could put very on good continentes, very good stances when he prayed, without making grimaces or bad faces, and grimaces with neither his mouth or his eyes, as other people used to do. Moreover, he had 1,000 and other ways to get money. He knew to say prayers for many diverse measures, for women who couldn't give birth, for those women who were giving birth, for those women who were badly married, and that their husbands didn't love them well. He echaba prognósticos. He gave advice or gave diagnoses to pregnant women. Diagnoses. So he predict for pregnant women if they were going to have a son or a daughter. And in medicine, he said that Galeno did not know half of what he did for teeth, for fainting, for evils of mothers, which I think means women's trouble. Finally, there was no one who would say to him that they were suffering from some type of passion, that right there and then he would not say, do this, or you have to do esto otro, this other thing. Take such a, like, get such a plant, take this route. And with this, everyone was going after him, especially the women, who believed everything he was saying to them. And from these women, he used to get great benefits with the skills which I'm saying. And he would earn more in a week than 100 blind men in a year. But also I want that you know that with everything that he acquired and he had, never ever did a man see such a avaricious and tight man. Sorry, I did not see in my life such an avaricious and tight man who killed me, who was killing me by hunger, who was starving me, and thus no me desmediaba de lo necesario, and thus did not give me even half of what was necessary for me to live. I speak the truth. If with my subtleness and my great skills, if I had not known how to make up for this, so if I had not known how to make up for this, not getting all food, by my subtleness and my thievery, basically, many times I would have died of hunger. But with all the knowledge and the advice, with all his knowledge and his advice, the blind man's knowledge and advice, I contaminated him of such a way that always, or more times than not, to me it fell more and better. So basically he's saying that because he learned all these things from him, in the end he ended up getting the greater share of what was going. And for this I would do unto him some devilish tricks, of which I will tell you some, although not all of them a mi salvo. Not all of them, which I did to save myself, I think. He used to bring bread and all other things. He used to carry his bread and all other things in a bundle of, not silk, of lienzo, linen, in a bundle of linen, which at its mouth was closed with a iron ring and a lock and key. So he had everything in this linen bag or sack, and he closed it with a ring and a lock. And when he would put things in there and take them out, he did so. It was with such vigilance and such por contadero, and he'd do it counting everything, that no bastara todo el mundo hacerle menos una migaja. That all the world would not be enough. There wasn't people in the world enough to take away from him a single crumb. But I took that penury which he gave me, which in less than 2 mouthfuls was gone, and after I'd taken the penury, the miserly bit that he'd give me, and after he would close the lock and he'd go about his business, not paying attention, thinking that I was doing other things, through a bit of the hem of the sewing, through the sewing, that very often on one side of the bag I would unpick the stitching and then I'd stitch it up again. So through the stitches I would bleed the avaricious, the greedy sack, taking out not just little bits of bread, but big bits, and also pork scratchings, pork rinds, and sausages, and thus I would look for a convenient time to redo. I don't know what that means. To redo, if not the devilish lack that the bad blind man was lacking to me. So basically, I think that's a play on words. He's saying, so then he'd have time, convenient time, to refill himself up on what he was empty, and he was empty because the blind man was treating him that way. So everything that I could rob or steal, I would carry as half blancas, which is a bit of money. So he must have converted them into money. He'd have them as half pennies, half shillings, half money, half blancas. And when they ordered him to pray, so the blind man, they get money this way by people who give him money to say prayers for them, and they gave him coins. Since he lacked sight, no había el que se la daba amagado con ella. Okay. Cuando yo la tenía lanzado en la boca y la media aparejada que por presto que le echaba la mano. Okay. So when he prayed for people and they would give him blancas, they would give him these coins, blancas, not half coins, these blancas. Since he didn't have his sight, there was no one who was giving it to him, who was on his way to giving it to him, who was making the pretensions of giving it to him, the coin, when I had that coin that they were going to give to him thrown in my mouth, and the half coin, which I already had, was at the ready. And as soon as the blind man was putting his hands out to get the full coin from the person who's going to give it to it, ya iba de mi cambio, then I had already made the exchange in half of the just price. So just to stop there. So for saying prayers, they give him a coin, this blanca, and so what he'd do is, as they were going to give him the coin, he'd quickly take it off them and throw it in his mouth and swap it for a half coin, which he would give to the beggar when he was putting his hands out. So the evil, or the bad blind man, was complaining to me about this, because upon feeling it, upon grabbing it in his hands, as soon as he did that, he knew and he could feel that it wasn't a full blanca, and he would say, "What devils is this? That since you are with me, they don't give to me nothing but half blancas. And before they give me a full blanca, and even hartas veces, many times, they give me a maravedí, which was worth more than a blanca. And these things they were paying for me. How is this happening? In you, it must be this unluckiness, or this, yeah. También él abreviaba el. Also, he used to cut short the prayers, and he wouldn't finish half of the prayer, because he'd ordered me that when the person who had paid him to pray, or had ordered him to pray, was on his way off, was leaving, he had ordered the Lazarillo to pull on the end of his cape, so he'd know that they were going, and so he didn't have to finish the prayers. And I did thus. Then he would turn and shout at me, saying, "No, he would." Then he would turn around and shout, saying, "They are ordering to pray this and that prayer." So basically, he'd say half the prayers, he'd get a tug to say, "The person who's paid me is off," and then he'd turn around shouting this, which is basically asking if anyone else wants any prayers said for them, as used to be said. He used to put near to him a small jug of wine when we were eating, and I very quickly would grab it and I would give it a few silent kisses, and I'd put it back in its place. But duró me poco, that should be duró me poco, but best didn't last long for me, because in the sips or the swigs that the blind man was giving to the wine, he realised that some wine was missing, and in order to reserve his wine safely, never afterwards he let go of the wine. Before, rather than do that, he would have it gripped by the handle. But there was not any piedra imán, there was not any magnet that thus could bring to him, that any person could bring to them, as I, with a long straw of rye, that for this necessity I had made, which putting this, so he'd made of straw out of barley or rye, and putting it in the top of the jug and sucking the wine, I would leave it to a good night. So basically saying, so he created this straw from a rye, sort of a long bit of straw. He created the straw, and he put it in the top of the wine jug, and then he'd say to the wine, "Good night," so it'll all be gone. But como fuese el traidor tan astuto, but since the traitor, so the blind man, was so clever, I think that he realised, he felt me doing this, and from then on he changed his position, and he would sit with the jug between his legs, and he would and he would cover it with his hand, and thus he would drink safely. Yo como estaba hecho al vino, since I was liked wine very much now, I was accustomed to the wine, I was dying for it, and seeing that remedy of the straw, that device of the straw, was no use to me. Acordé en el suelo del jarro. I scratched in the bottom of the jar. No, I acordé. I decided to, on the bottom of the jar, to make in it a little spout or a little fountain and a small hole, and delicately, with a very little or thin piece of wax to stop it, to make a stopper with it, with wax to the hole. And at the time of eating, so when it was lunchtime, Pretending to be cold, I would go beneath the legs of the sad blind man to warm myself on the very poor fire that we had there. And the heat from that, what immediately, y al calor de ella luego derretida la cera, and due to the heat of that, immediately the wax would melt, por ser muy poca, since there was only a little bit of wax there, and thus it would start the little fountain to come out and would pour in my mouth, which, lo cual yo de tal manera ponía que maldita la gota que se perdía, and which myself, I positioned myself in such a way that damned was the drop that was lost. So he positioned himself in a way that he'd get all of the liquid, all of the wine. When the poor man went to drink, he did not find anything, and he was shocked, and he was cursing, and he was sending the jug to the devil and the wine, not knowing what he could do. And so this is in inverted commas, so this is what Lazarillo is saying to him. You're not saying, uncle, that I drink it on you, since you don't take your hand away from it. So many vueltas, so many turns he gave to the jar, and touching he gave to the jar, that he found the source, and he found the fountain, and he realised what the trick was. But thus he hid it, as if he had not, no hubiera, as if he had not felt it. And then the next day, having I oozed the jug as I used to, draining it, not thinking in the damage that the blind man was preparing for me, nor that the evil blind man was feeling what I was doing. I sat myself down as I used to, estando recibiendo, and I was receiving those lovely sweet gollops of wine. My face was upturned towards the sky, my eyes a little bit closed, so as to better flavour or taste the flavoursome liquor, and then the desperate blind man felt or realised that now he had time to take out his vengeance on me, and with all his force, raising with two hands that sweet and bitter jug, he let it fall on my mouth, brought it down on my mouth, helping himself, as I say, with all his might, with all his strength, in a way that the poor Lázaro, que de nada de esto, who nothing of this was not expecting anything of this before, as in other times, was at ease and happy. And then truly it seemed to me that the sky, with everything that there was in it, had fell on top of me. The hit that he gave me was such that he stunned me, and he knocked me out. He knocked out my senses. And the jar was so big that the pieces of it porque los pedazos de él se me metieron, and that pieces of it stuck in my face, cutting me in many places, and it broke some of my teeth, without which today I am. Yeah, I've still not got them today. From that time, I loved badly the evil blind man. I did not like the bad blind man. Although he wanted me, and he looked after me and he cured me from what he'd done, I could see very well that he had enjoyed his cruel punishment. So he washed with wine the cuts that I had done, I had done with the pieces of the jug, and smiling, he said to me, "What does this seem to you, Lazaro? What makes you sick also cures you and gives you health." And other witty comments he said, which, to my mind, were not witty comments at all.